Hello, my name is John Sendra. I am an osteopath and yoga teacher. First of all, let me tell you that in the description you'll find links to both in-person and online courses. And this November 29th in Valencia, I'm giving a workshop on organs, emotions, and yoga. Today we're going to talk about twisting postures. We've already looked at flexion, extension, and lateral bending postures in other videos. Let's go to the screen. For example, let's look at Parivarta Trikonasana, which is a twisting posture. We can see that the orange or red areas indicate stretching and the blue areas indicate toning. One of the main characteristics of twisting postures is that they combine both muscle stretching and toning. Let's pause it. Here, in this case, we can see the hamstrings, the fascia lata, and the glutes of the front leg, which you are toning along with the soleus muscles, and we also have the adductors and the abdominal muscles, which are engaged to maintain balance. Twisting postures create coordination of the crossed muscle chains. Twisting postures involve the crossed muscle chains. In this case, we have the anterior crossed chain, which is usually a coordination from the right shoulder to the left foot and from the left shoulder to the right foot. That entire cross chain, we also have the upper cross chain and the lower cross chain, or the complete chain. Twisting postures create coordination and activation of these crossed muscle chains. For the brain, this requires a lot of activation because it's not just an activation in flexion or extension of the anterior or posterior muscle chain, but the crossed chains are very complex for the brain since they involve both sides and, on top of that, in a crossed manner. Elongating the spine is very important for doing this posture. Before building the posture, we need to seek elongation and work on all the abdominal muscles. We return to the posture, focusing on activating the navel point, the abdominal muscles, to achieve that elongation of the spine and prevent the discs from being compressed. Here we can see that there is an extension of the spine forward, an elongation, and then the twist. I'm going to stop it. It's not advisable to do twisting postures when cold. It's better to do them when the body is already warmed up because that allows the spine to become more flexible. But if the muscles are cold, twists will just squeeze. They'll compress the discs. Another very important thing for mastering twisting postures is the control of the bandhas, mula bandha, the pelvic floor, and the abdominal muscles. The transverse abdominis is very important when it comes to building twists. Well, not just for twists, but for all postures, you need to learn the bandhas, pelvic floor toning, and abdominal toning. As we can see in these twisting postures, you have to control the alignment of the knee. Here we can see it on the right side, the alignment of the knee. If the knee is not aligned, it will cause excessive compression on the menisci and the cruciate ligaments. If we look closely, the foot is aligned with the knee and aligned with the pelvis. You need to control the sole of the foot, the knee, the pelvis, the torso, shoulders, and arms to manage the inertia in the twist. We can already see that twisting postures are not an easy thing. Benefits of twists. As we mentioned before, there is a prior elongation of the spine, and it is important that for these postures the body is already warmed up and that we do a full flexibility routine. Twists allow for the flexibilization of the cross chains, which act as a kind of anchor. The leverage on one hand is beneficial for stretching the muscles, but be careful with the vertebral discs and the articular facets, the joints. Here we can see the articular facets, which are the cartilages that allow the vertebrae to move and slide against each other. If everything is cold, the muscles are cold, the synovial fluid, which is the fluid between the articular facets, the cartilage, to allow for sliding, is also cold. If all of that is cold, when we do a twist, we're going to squeeze the discs. That's why it's important to stretch beforehand, to elongate before doing a twist, so that we don't shear the discs or put excessive pressure on the articular facets. Twisting postures allow us to open up the rib cage, but only if we elongate first, because if we don't stretch beforehand, the muscles remain short and tense. What twisting does is squeeze and compress the rib cage. Postures without twisting allow for the compression of the organs. When we do a twist, for example, to the right side, and the pelvis tends to move to the left, we compress all the organs. This, for example, helps the liver by compressing the spaces between the lobes inside the liver, which aids in expelling accumulated toxins. And this example applies to any organ, to compress the stomach, to empty the stomach, the pancreas, the small intestines, and the large intestines. In other words, twisting postures act like a kind of washing machine, a centrifuge for the toxins accumulated in the organs. We can also see that twists will compress the thyroid, the parathyroid, the adrenal glands, the pancreas, the ovaries, and the uterus. Twisting postures are fantastic for compressing the glands, which in turn will release the hormones that they secrete. A perfect functioning of the glands guarantees us perfect health, especially of the immune system. It will compress the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system, the big difference with the circulatory system is that it doesn't have a pump to move the lymph. Who is the pump? The muscles. When we do a twist, we've already seen that for Parivarta Trikonasana, the leg muscles are usually tense and stretched at the same time. That will compress the lymphatic vessels in the legs. The abdominal twist compresses the lymphatic vessels, which will allow the lymph to ascend toward the jugular. In this way, we are expelling the toxins accumulated in the lymphatic system. But we also have the circulatory system, and something similar happens there. The compression of the muscles and the twist will compress the circulatory channels, both veins and arteries, facilitating the ascent of blood toward the heart and thus helping to cleanse the blood that has been dirtied by the organs and the lymphatic system. Twisting postures facilitate the activation of neural maps. These types of postures are very challenging for the brain. We have the right brain hemisphere, which is more emotional, and we have the left brain hemisphere, which is more rational. Twisting postures force communication between the two hemispheres through the corpus callosum, generating new neural maps and new memories for performing twisting postures, which are much more complex than postures like forward bends or back bends. What are the contraindications for this type of posture? If we have a herniated disc, let's remove a vertebra and leave the disc. If there is a painful herniated disc, twists tend to squeeze the vertebral disc, which can cause it to slip out and compress the sciatic nerve even more, for example. So, when we have a painful herniated disc, twists should not be performed, or if they must be done, it should be after the pain has subsided and always focusing on lengthening the spine to avoid compressing the vertebral discs. The same thing happens with the knees. Here we have the cruciate ligaments, and when we do a twist, we need to control the alignment of the knee. Otherwise, we might overstretch the cruciate ligaments, which can cause an injury. And here we have the menisci, where something similar happens. The worst movement for the menisci is twisting, especially twisting combined with knee flexion. That's why alignment is so important. When performing twisting postures, it is important to keep knee alignment in mind, especially for people who already have a meniscus or cruciate ligament injury. Respected, honored, and esteemed Satanang Guru. Satanam Waiguru Satanam Waiguru Satanam Waheguru Satanam Waheguru Satanam Waiguru Saturn. This chant is traditionally repeated in meditation to promote peace and spiritual connection. The words are believed to help focus the mind and open the heart, while Saturn at the end may symbolize discipline and patience on the spiritual journey. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and take care. See you next time.